Hello and welcome to YHTV's Magical Medical Tour. This is episode 81. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Christina Suzama, and with me is our wonderful medical guide, Dr. Glenn Woolman. Hello, Dr. Woolman.
Hello, Christina.
You were trying to shoot out of the start line, right? Before the gun went off.
I know, it's a false start. Runners, take your positions again. Greetings, everyone. Welcome to Magical Medical Tour. I'm Dr. Glenn Woolman. I will be your guide along with Christina today as we travel through another quadrant of the healthcare galaxy, searching for optimal health. And today we're going to talk about life balance and 6 categories. We've done this before and we will do it again. And I'm looking forward to it. But before that, we have some great information for all of our listeners. And I'd love you to share that with them, Christina.
Well, yes, I think this is very exciting news that has just graced us, which we have been nominated. The Magical Medical Tour has been nominated for the 9th Annual Podcast Awards. We are very honored as we've been chosen out of 4,400 podcasts. We have been chosen to be in the health and fitness category. So we are in the running for that podcast award. And we would hope that you would all take a moment to vote and to vote each day. It's a daily voting system. If you can, no pressure. No. Just by going to our site, yogahub.tv, you will see there is a link. And if you click on it, it will tell you all about how to vote. And you can even sign up for daily reminders, so that we will send you a quick email every day to say, please vote for us. Remember to vote. And it's a very interesting system. They don't just grade on the number of votes. They grade on a number of things, which is like the site, how easy it is to use, the production value of the shows. But just by being nominated for Magical Medical Tour, it's going to bring thousands of eyes and ears over to our podcasts, over to our videocasts. And so we hope that all of you will partake and help us to win that award. There you go.
I'm pretty excited about that. It is an honor. You know, I've never been involved in anything like this before, being in medicine. Although, you know, every year watching Grammys and Oscars and Emmys and things like that, but and always wondering what the people went through to go through that journey. And it's kind of an interesting aspect right now to share in this for a moment.
You just want to walk that red carpet.
Right.
With me.
That's right. That's right. No, of course. And Segovia. It's going to be great. In the meantime, though, we actually have a show.
We do?
So,
that's right. We have a show. Yes, yes.
So this could be the show that will make people really want to vote for us. So just in case, do you want to tell people how to get in touch with us today?
Absolutely. You know, during all our live presentations, you can feel free to ask a question or make a comment simply by scrolling down on your screen and typing it into the comment box. Or if you prefer to ask it directly yourself, you are very welcome to dial into our conference line, which is 323-476-3997. Your ID is 607-393#. And not to worry, that number will show up on the screen as we are doing this presentation. Thank you, Glenn.
You're welcome, and thank you, Christina. Last week, I want to go over something from last week, or our last episode, before we move into today's episode. We were talking about one of the things was the flu vaccine. The other was about Halloween, and I hope everyone had a great Halloween and everyone's still safe and healthy from that. But we were talking about the flu vaccine, and you had brought up a question about whether the flu vaccine is safe for nursing mothers.
Mm-hmm.
And although I felt like it was, I just didn't, in my mind in that moment, didn't have the data just to say specifically it was or it wasn't. So I went back and researched it, and it is definitely safe and recommended actually for nursing mothers, so no problem. But again, as with everything else in medicine, every person has a uniqueness to them, and it's very important that if you decide to have the flu vaccine, you should discuss it with your doctor and get the right vaccine. So yes, that's the answer on nursing mothers.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. I think that is a very important question. Because, a lot of times they tell you everything is safe and it's okay.
I don't know I don't know anymore what is and what isn't. But I know that if you get the vaccine where the virus is inactivated, you're not passing on the virus to the child. So what you're passing on are the antibodies that the mother developed. So
interesting.
It is. So you don't have to worry that you're going to give your child the flu because it has the virus in it.
Very interesting. The human body, it's just that magnificent world of technology.
Yeah, it is.
Those ones and zeros.
Ones and zeros, definitely.
Glenn, there is also another question that came up. If I don't know if you'd like to give a little feedback on it right now. It was something that was commented through the site itself in a comment box. And it's thank you very much for this very informative program on the flu and getting the vaccine. I have mixed feelings about whether I should get the vaccine. And my question is, I have high blood pressure and I take a daily med for it. And I also have incontinence issues and also take Visicare to control it. I have not had the flu during the past 10 years and would like to know if I should get the shot anyway.
First of all, thank you for your comment and question. And we appreciate that. And just to let you know that we'll always get back to you, be it through email or from the site or on the show itself if you call in at a certain time. The answer, and first of all, I am glad that you have mixed feelings about it. I think everyone should have mixed feelings about all the medications that they take until they make the decision whether or not to take it. If you decide to take it, then you should no longer have mixed feelings. You should have very positive feelings for whatever medication you're going to take, if you need to do that. The hypertension and the incontinence, the bladder or urinary incontinence, should not really be reasons not to take the vaccine. One of the things that I would need to know would be your age. Sometimes age is a factor where you can factor that it may not be as important for you to take it at a certain age and much more important at another age. For example, people over 65. But interestingly, one of the things that's coming out right now, there's some new research that's coming out, and it's early and it's small studies and it's not something that's very specific yet, but they're trying to equate getting the flu shot with actually preventing heart attacks and strokes. And that might seem like a long way to go. And like I said, the studies are just preliminary and they're small studies and bigger ones need to be done. But the theory being that it's not the cholesterol necessarily or the size of an atheroma inside your blood vessel or sclerosis inside your blood vessel, especially in the coronary arteries. But what happens is an inflammatory process for various reasons can occur, and that inflammatory process will break off a piece of the arteriosclerotic growth, and that piece that breaks off after the inflammation can go down the vessel and eventually clog it up when the vessel gets small enough. And that's what actually causes the heart problem. And they believe that a lot of it has to do with inflammation. So what they're saying is that when a person gets the flu, the body sets up an anti-inflammatory response, and it gets inflamed for a while. And by taking the flu shot, if you can prevent the flu and prevent that inflammation, then you have more of an increased possibility to decrease your chances for a heart attack or stroke. So how's that for an answer?
Yeah.
So anyway, back to the original question
so
is,
do we or don't we?
right. So I think depending on the person's age and with the history of hypertension and things like that, I think it's a good idea to be thinking positively about getting the flu vaccine. But then you have to go through your own issues and discuss it with yourself first. And then if you have other questions, discuss it with your doctor. Most people lean toward getting the flu shot. And that's where I would probably lean. But I think it is good. And I commend you for having mixed feelings about it so that you think about it consciously and go from there. I don't know if I totally answered the question, but it's always an individual decision.
Well, the good pointers, though. Thank you.
Yeah, you are welcome. So today, 6 categories. What I've learned is that in our species, health is not really something that a lot of people think about until it becomes a problem. If you're feeling well, you don't think too much about your health. Now, of course, I think this is changing with shows like this and so many of the other things that people are doing actively in the world right now. It is changing a little bit. But for the most part, you always talk to someone and they only say, oh, how you feeling? And you go, oh, I have some health issues. And we've all heard that. And when people do have health issues, that's when they start thinking about their health. If you become a diabetic, you have to think more about your diet. If you have a heart problem, you have to think more about exercise and again, your diet and all of the other 6 categories that we're talking about. But it seems like we don't think of things about health. And my concept is that health itself is an issue. And we always need to be thinking of health as an issue before we get health issues like illnesses and trauma. So we should always think of it. And in one of the blogs that I wrote a while ago, I think I talked about it as we should not have health on the last page of our newspaper. We should have it on the front page. It doesn't always have to be the headline, but at least it has to be on the front page. Or another metaphoric way of saying is it shouldn't be on a back burner. It should always be up front, simmering somewhere. So I always look at the things to help people get healthy, and I always talk about the 6 categories. And the 6 categories are exercise, nutrition, stress management, sleep management, patterns of behavior, and spirituality. And periodically I like to go over those with people to first understand those categories. Second is to, once you understand them intellectually, we try to find ways to help people go from intellect to consciousness and make it part of your lifestyle and make it your health issue. And in doing this, we try to bring current information or some tips to people to help them. So that's what I want to do today. And we're going to start again with exercise. And not that it's the most important, but it's one of them. And they're all just as important. I always say that you have to be aware of all 6, and they tie into each other. And they're all important. You can't just focus on 1 or 2 and hope that the other 4 can just lag behind. All of them have to be at consciousness and part of your lifestyle. So exercise is the first one. And today, for my little tip, I talked to Heidi Harrison, a world-class Pilates instructor, and asked her for a health tip on exercise. And what her tip was, and I thought it was very interesting, I wasn't sure what she was going to give me as an answer, but she just simply said, unplug, and then was quiet for a moment. And I thought about it, and I wanted to see where she went with it. And she said, basically, when you're exercising, turn off your computers, turn off your phones, your pads, your pods, and everything else. Don't read magazines. She felt that, she felt, I know, stay tuned to your body while you're exercising, because, and this is the part that I really agree with, because it's giving you important information you need to know. And if you're being distracted by all of these other things, then you may be missing vital pieces of information that will determine your future health and possibly present health. And I see that a lot in the gym, where people are always listening to things. And part of my thing is I see it mainly for people that are on the cardio workouts, on the bikes and the Stairmasters and the ellipticals, and they're running. It seems like they really want to do that, but it's boring.
Yeah, and I have to say, when in that gym atmosphere, I'd rather be listening to like the Magical Medical Tour or Trinity of Life, going through, streaming into my headphones, than that blaring music that is thumping away in the background.
I would agree with that, but I still think I like the idea of unplug. I think that exercise is a really good time to get away from everything else. And not be focused on other things. And the part that she said about being tuned to your body, that's the key here while you're exercising, because if something hurts you when you're doing something, that's an indicator, and you should be aware of that right away. And if something's blaring and blasting and you're focused on an article you're reading and you miss that little clue, that might be an opportunity to either prevent something or find something early that under normal circumstances you wouldn't get. So I think that's pretty important. I know that when I'm exercising, I love to have the music in my own mind, or whatever I'm thinking about in my own mind as I'm tuning in to the body and connecting it, to my mind and connecting it to my spirit. That's a great part of exercise for me.
That's a great tip. Thank you, Heidi Harrison.
Definitely. So I want to move on and talk about the next one, which is nutrition. And just as a reminder, whenever I think of nutrition here on Magical Medical Tour, we think of Tracy Harrison.
Yeah, another Harrison.
Yeah, another Harrison. This is going to be a Harrison episode. Tracy will be on with this, I think, the last Tuesday in the month. Maybe, is that November 26th?
That's right.
Yeah, she's going to be on, and we're going to be speaking about diets, different types of diets. We're not going to look at just the normal diets, but we are going to speak about a number of different diets. So just to let everyone know. And if anything comes up today from our discussion, we could certainly work with Tracy and ask her about that. But for me right now, we have nutritionists, we have research scientists, we have physicians, we have the food industry, we have the government. All of those are giving us a lot of information, especially over the last 50 years, on what we should eat. There's always new information on the newest, latest, greatest fad diet, how to lose weight. Most of the time, the diets are about losing weight. So there's, the Atkins diet that we've spoken about. There's the low-fat, high-protein diet. There's the increase the carbs diet, and many different types of diets that we've all looked at and many people have tried. And you can always find anecdotal stories on either side of the issue of someone who, oh yes, I ate just watermelon, I lost 45 pounds, or I did this and I got sick. So there's always anecdotes, but we need science. And the science so far has not been that great. It's been as good as it could be, but sometimes we went on bad data, and instead of redoing and renewing and relooking for new concepts, we built a lot of our studies on old data. And that's why things have been very confusing for us over the last few years. Economic gain is also another part of this whole process, and marketing, but what we see right now is that the concept of a proper diet to address things like heart disease and diabetes and obesity, it's almost too complex to do a normal specific study to figure out what is the right thing. Don't forget, in the study, we have so many complex issues, genetics, we have cravings, food choices, hormones, insulin, carbohydrate metabolism, lifestyles. All of these things need to be part of the studies. And it turns out that in many cases it's just too complex to be able to say this is the right one, this is the wrong one. So for me right now, basically what I want to come out with, just for our little tip today, is that we should be just thinking for the moment until we get the science right. And there's a lot of science going on right now, and they will get it right, because there are many things that we're learning that we have good information on, like the omega-3 fats are good for us, and certain types of fats are worse for us, certain carbohydrates are worse for us, and we could talk about that in a few moments. But basically, if you just think too much of anything is too much.
Mm-hmm.
So if you think, oh, I want to have a lot of protein because I'm a weightlifter and I want to build up my muscle mass, well, that might do that, but too much protein may be very bad for your kidneys. And then you hear that, oh, I should be eating more fats because they're going to give me protection against inflammation, and it's another form of fuel, and it's healthier for me. But too much fat can be bad for your heart, especially the bad fats. And carbohydrates, there are many different types of carbohydrates. There's the refined sugars, the simple sugars, the things that are made with flour, many processed foods. These are carbohydrates that are actually bad for us. And there are some carbohydrates that we need that are good for us, that come in fruits and vegetables and fiber, and some sugars. But in all the processes, I think until we have the actual science, you have to look again into yourself. You have to unplug, as Heidi said, in terms of when you eat things, see what they do for you. How do they make you feel? Are you gaining weight on them and trying not to? Or you might be trying to gain weight, and that's good. So you need to plug into your own existence and your own metabolism and your own habits about eating, and find out what's good for you and eat less of it. But you should be thinking in terms of the proteins and the carbohydrates and the fats. The way I like to look at it is I just think of the proteins and the fats as the structures that are important, the building blocks that help us define structure and chemistry and hormones and things like that. So in other words, the proteins are the things that make up the cell structure. We always talk about cells, and it's important to have a structure, otherwise they don't exist. And then the function within them, if this cell is designed to produce insulin, or to produce another product, or to move the heart. Those are things that proteins and fats do. And the way to think of the carbohydrate is really a fuel. And it's simply that. So if you are going to be sleeping, if you're going to sleep, you don't need that much fuel. So having carbohydrates, especially simple carbohydrates late at night, to fuel yourself for sleeping is not a good idea.
That means no desserts, right?
Well, you can have your dessert, but you can have it, not just before you go to bed. So I think that would be the key there, to figure out when do you need fuel and how much fuel do you need. If you're going to the gym, you need more fuel. If you're going to run a marathon, like the New York Marathon that was just run recently, you need a lot of fuel. But if you're going to be sedentary for the day, then you don't quite need as much fuel. So that's my quick tip. Didn't seem that quick, actually.
That was a very full tip.
It was a full tip.
A full
on nutrition. Yeah. Any questions in this area, or any thoughts on that?
No, I think you covered it very well, Dr. Woolman. Yes, we can.
It's very confusing right now. We hear so many things, and you have so many different groups. You have the American Heart Association trying to say one thing, and you have the food industry trying to say something else. And most people are tuned in to commercials rather than reading the journals about
yes.
things.
Yes, I mean, they're going to hear it as a whole, and it's like how wonderful milk is for us, right? I mean, but that ventures across not just the United States, but all throughout the world.
All throughout the world, obesity now, and you could follow this. It's really interesting if you follow food in the food industry. Of course, if you look at that, we have to realize that as a species, we were designed to eat things that were before the pre-agriculture period in our evolution. So things that we found that were natural, or that we killed and that were alive, and that were eating their own healthy foods. That's what our body is designed for. So once we went to the agricultural age, and then we started producing things that would have a longer shelf life, or would be able to be transported from one country to another country, or one part of a state to another part of a state, things had to be entered into them. And then you had people started looking at cravings, or the industries looked at cravings, and they say, gosh, we can. If you look at the carbohydrates in terms of producing foods, carbohydrates are probably one of the cheapest foods to produce.
I see.
And you can charge higher for it in some cases. You can get your markup fairly high for that, especially when you create cravings in those areas. You talk about people, but most people, when they're thinking of having a dessert snack, they would not ever think of going to some cauliflower or some kale or a tomato or a carrot. They would think of the candy bar that had the better marketing.
Well, also the candy bar, which is their health bar, which is excellent marketing. The granola bars and things like that, which is second ingredient is sugar, sugar and more sugar. The energy bars that have come out as well. People go, oh, this is my breakfast bar. When I picked up a breakfast bar at school, it was first ingredient sugar, fifth ingredient sugar.
Yeah. Well, that's the issue now. The refined sugars, where the corn, fructose, and things like that, those are the things that are really causing the problems. And we're seeing more and more of that. And it's not the fats that people were eating. In fact, more of the dietitians are looking toward increasing the fats to a certain degree. But again, it's too much is too much.
Agreed.
So eat less and think of carbohydrates, especially the simple ones, as strictly fuel. And ask yourself each time before you eat, do I need any fuel right now? Or do I need anything right now?
Like my large banana split. Okay.
Definitely. Okay. So we move on and we talk about stress management. Stress again. We always talk about stress. All of us have stress. We're designed to have stress. Our bodies are designed to have stress. It's a bodily function. At least the way I look at it. It's a response. It's an ability to deal with an issue that requires either greater strength or more concentration or speed or something like that. It's to protect us from danger. All of these things, because stress is about hormones. First, it's about a reaction to something and a perceived threat. And then it's about hormones that go into the bloodstream. And those hormones, when they go to the different receptor sites on different organs, create all sorts of things to happen for us. Blood pressure goes up, pulse goes up, vision changes, all the intestinal blood is moved away toward muscles. A lot of things happen during stress moments. And this is okay for a few moments. It's when the stress continues for long periods of time and those hormones are continuing to be in the body and have their effects on organs. And eventually the organs get inflamed or they wear down. And that's when the complications occur. That's when we have the heart disease, the strokes, the high blood pressure, and even inflammatory processes and autoimmune programs. But there's good stress, actually. I mean, the stress sometimes, if you're a student and you have a term paper due tomorrow, you're stressed enough so that you'll stay up and finish it. There's
Adrenaline rush.
Right. No, that's one of the hormones. Exactly what it is.
Red carpet.
Also, on behalf of the Academy
of podcasters,
of both of the podcasters, now I'm totally lost. I have no idea where I was. The stress can also be fun sometimes. You know, if you go to an amusement park and you get on a roller coaster and you're up at that top and you're ready to come down, you start getting stressed a little bit. All of the adrenaline hits and you love that moment. So there are good parts to stress. There is a little bit of good stress, but ultimately, if stress goes on too long, just like any other bodily function, if you thought about tears, for example, as a bodily function to either clean the eyes out or to show an emotional response, it happens for a little while and then it ends. But if you were crying and tearing constantly 24 hours a day, you couldn't live with that. And think of other bodily functions that you do in spurts. That usually is the way it works. It happens intermittently for short periods of time, and that's comfortable and appropriate. But if you continued all bodily functions continuously, it would not be comfortable, nor could you have a good day.
Totally agree. That one I can agree upon.
So today is, I just have a little helpful hint on, it's a little tip, and it comes from a Chinese proverb. It says, and this has to do with how to deal with stress management. If you are patient in one moment of anger, you will escape 100 days of sorrow.
You will, if you are patient in one moment of anger, you will
escape 100 days of sorrow. Chinese proverb. And I was thinking about that because, you know, most of the time, a lot of stress is due to something we may have done in a moment of stress that we have to deal with after the stress is over, whether we said something to hurt somebody in one moment of anger, or we did something irrational in a moment of anger. You know, I can't tell you how many people I've had to take care of their fractured hand when they got angry and slammed a wall and tried to put their fist through metal or a wall or a window or something like that because they were so angry. Mm-hmm. So it's that one moment of anger, and it's the 100 days of sorrow that follow that. But it's important for people to just figure out how they look at stress, how they deal with stress, how they manage stress. It's very important in our well-being.
Yes. Do more ohms.
More ohms.
Breathe. Definitely. Meditate.
Yeah, the four square breath.
Meditation. Yes, four square breath.
What kind of meditation?
I said moving meditation.
Yeah, I love moving meditation. Mm-hmm. I think that's a great thing to do.
A slow bounce.
A slow bounce. Still, you're excited, but it's a slow meditative bounce.
Oh, yes.
Right. You can go off into the universe in one bounce. I like that. Mm-hmm. So what's next? Let's talk about spirit for a moment. Spirit is something that's very personal for people. The way I look at spirit, for me, we always talk about body, mind, and spirit. And I always look at the body as all the cells and the things that we can look at under a microscope. You know, everything from the skin within and back to the skin. I look at the mind as an ability of ourselves to communicate with ourselves and with others, and to compartmentalize and analyze things. And I look at spirit as a way of connecting ourselves and placing ourselves in the universe, the perspective, the grounding into the universe, and the centering, and how we relate to the big picture and our how we relate to all other things. So that's spirit for me, and it's very individualized. So for me, spirit takes on many possibilities. And I read a quote the other day that I thought would be very good for everybody to improve your spirit for today and any time that you might read this or listen to this podcast in the future. So here it is. And the author is unknown. If you've forgotten the language of gratitude, you'll never be on speaking terms with happiness. So I'll repeat it. If you've forgotten the language of gratitude, you'll never be on speaking terms with happiness. And I find that that is a big part of spirit, to be in a state, the more of a state of gratitude you're in and compassion, the higher your spirit is, the more you are in your higher self, and it brings on happiness.
Mm-hmm. I can agree with that.
I would hope so.
Mm-hmm.
I would wonder otherwise.
You would wonder otherwise?
I certainly would. I certainly would.
Yes.
So we have, next one is patterns of behavior. Mm-hmm. Unless you have any questions about any of those that we've gone on to.
No, just lovely.
Okay.
Wonderful tips.
Ah, good. So patterns of behavior. And next week, we're going to be speaking with Dr. Marissa Pei. And you should also tune in for this one. She's a radio talk show host. She's an author, public speaker, and a consultant to people and to companies. She's a Tai Chi and Qigong teacher. She's a singer. So many different things. And we're going to ask her maybe a little bit about patterns of behavior. But just for a quick description, our bodies are basically about patterns. We have physiological patterns that you know. Heart rate is a pattern, breathing rate's a pattern, waking and sleeping cycles are patterns. Those are patterns of physiology. And then we go to patterns of behavior. And patterns of behavior are the way we move through our life, how we get in a car, how we start a car, how we put on makeup, how we get dressed, how we date, how we interact with people, how we act when we're in a place we don't know. All of these things are patterns of behavior. And these are things we've learned over our lifetimes. Sometimes it's very difficult to change patterns of behavior. There are certain patterns that we have that are good for us and healthy for us, and we don't want to change those. But periodically we have patterns that we've learned and have been used to help us survive various life situations that maybe no longer are necessary. So it's important to be aware of patterns and know that they exist, and to be able to analyze them as a good and helpful, beneficial pattern, or one that should be changed because it's causing you harm or others harm, or both. So I, just for today, instead of looking at it as a pattern, consider it as a script. And consider it as a script that was written for you by your parents or by your teachers or by your doctors or friends or yourself. And realize that you can change the script now as an adult. If you're not an adult yet, you could start thinking about the script anyway and exhibit adult-like patterns of behavior. So I would say, if you look at it as a script, then look at some of the things that you're doing and try and pick one today, or whenever you hear this podcast, or each time you hear the podcast. Pick a different script and see if it can be changed. Write a new script for it. And I have a couple little sayings here that I wanted to throw in with that. And this first one is from Swami Shivananda. He says, and this goes along with the script, I guess. I didn't realize that as I was writing it. But as you can change your handwriting by constant practice, so you can change your mind patterns by constant practice of positive and constructive thoughts. So that goes along with that. As you can change your handwriting by constant practice, you can also change your mind patterns or patterns of behavior by constant practice of positive and constructive thoughts. Swami Shivananda. And do you have anything on that, Christina?
Love it. I
Yeah.
love it. It's because it's so simple for people to understand. And so often as we move through life, you hear the sayings, can't teach a old dog new tricks, and oh, it's been set in, I can't change things, and you've just made it so clear. It's you can change that pattern. You could change that pattern as simple as you would changing your handwriting. I love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, that's very good. I like that too. I have another one also. This is from Confucius. And I really like this one a lot. When you have faults, when you have faults, do not fear to abandon them. So that to me makes it that combination of the two. If one of your patterns of behavior could be considered a fault, don't be afraid to get rid of it.
Wow, it might not exist.
Oh, don't say that to me. Confucius would have a great time with you.
Ah, that's nice.
Yeah, I like that too.
Mhm.
So, patterns of behavior. Any thoughts on patterns? We all have them. We just don't think about it because our brain is designed, our brain likes to be in charge. And if we start taking over, sometimes it gets confused and doesn't like us and does things to us. And it likes to take over, on the deepest level, our autonomic system. If you imagine that I'm going to be in charge of my heartbeat from now on, that wouldn't do very well, or your respirations or anything like that. So the brain has all of these patterns on its deepest level. And then when it gets up to higher thinking, it also likes to deal with patterns. It makes it easier so that you can actually be multitasking. You can do many things at the same time, preparing a meal, eating a meal, the way that you shower. All of these things are patterns. And it's just good to be thinking of them and look for the ones that are hurting you and move forward.
I would love to add this to this topic where I do believe for the people who have children and you watch that child or those children grow every stage of their life from birth to the year-old, and the amount of shifts that they make, the amount of shifts and changes that they go through, not just physically, but in every way, body, mind, spirit, all of these 6 areas that you talk about. It's amazing how much we as adults have forgotten, and we just take for granted. And we go through life, when we move through life, it's like what you're saying. If you're healthy, you don't even think about preventative health or wellness, overall wellness. You don't think about it because you're just moving through life. You don't have a cold, you don't have the flu, and everything's fine. It's these children, as we watch them, a lot of people don't pay heed either until something comes up. And as I work in the schools and I watch these children, how they're developing and how their habits, as they go through behavioral patterns, as you would call it, as they go through the different years, as you say, is as simple as that handwriting. If you are on it right from the beginning and they're able to make those changes and you keep having them change and alter, there is a certain creativity and freedom that begins to develop in those kids.
Not only that, and many blessings to you for being aware of that and bringing that up. I think it's really important for parents and anyone dealing with children that are developing their patterns, be aware that a lot of the patterns they're developing are because they're processing things that they are trying to create a response that they think will get a positive reaction from the person that's causing them to have the pattern. And And sometimes it's about survival. If you're in an abusive relationship with a child, that child is going to develop habits and patterns that are going to try and help it survive and to try and please you so that it doesn't get abused.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, then when they grow up and they're not necessarily being abused anymore, but they still have those patterns, and then they interpret when other people come to them and may say something, it may trigger an old response to a bad pattern, which isn't necessary anymore. And that causes problems in relationships and jobs and professions and everything else.
Mm.
So, yep, keep looking at your scripts.
Keep rewriting them.
Keep rewriting your scripts.
Not just for yourself, for those around you.
Yeah, definitely.
Right.
And at every age, we can change patterns.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it's good to have conversations with people that care about you, that can sometimes point out patterns that may not be so great in a loving way, so that you can sometimes be aware. One of our patterns is to avoid recognizing patterns. So sometimes we need help in that.
Well, they're
aspect.
Scary. They can get really scary.
Yeah, that's why there are psychologists and psychiatrists and heavy-duty drugs, because some of those are pretty scary. In the emergency department, we saw people that were very scary to the point where they were not really functioning on a level that was safe for the rest of humanity or for themselves. And in fact, you know, that was our criteria usually when we had to put somebody into the hospital, what we called a 5150 or a psychiatric lockdown, something like that. And usually the criteria that we had to meet, aside from many different health criteria, but the two important things are, is this person dangerous to themselves or to others? And, or if we found that, then we would put them in the hospital until we could get control and figure out what was wrong with them. So anyway, getting pretty heavy here.
We had a comment that came in, Dr. Woolman. The comment is, love these scripts for switching patterns of behavior. Thank you for sharing them.
Oh, very nice.
Yes, love those scripts.
Very nice.
And if you don't have time to rewrite, that's okay.
Was that one sent in from...
Just practice something.
Thank you, whoever sent that in. Yes, unless it was good. Segovia.
No, I think he's writing a whole paragraph.
That's good.
I'll have new scripts for him, don't worry.
I'm sure. As you should.
That would be something. That would be a great exercise for a whole family to do.
Yes.
Wouldn't that be a fun exercise? Like when you're sitting around the dinner table or whatever it is, when you have quiet time and you just say, okay, well, you know, tomorrow night when you know, come with a new pattern of behavior, right?
Nice.
Let's come with a whole new pattern of behavior. Good, bad, indifferent. It doesn't matter. Just come with a whole new pattern of behavior. That'd be so much fun.
I think I like it, except for the part of good, bad, or
well, you know, what's really interesting, and this is something I've found, sometimes it's like perspective, and sometimes if someone brings a pattern that is what others would consider bad or
maybe naughty would be
naughty,
okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I like naughty more than bad.
Yes, but at least it's a pattern of behavior where you can have a discussion to go, you know, that's not really appropriate. You know, it's not appropriate. So let's change the script for tomorrow.
It's a great idea.
Right? And instead of negating it, because if the person's come up with it, it's somewhere in their psyche
That's right.
that it's going to
That's
come
right.
out sooner or later. So you might as well let it come out now and discuss it and kind of go, oh, that's kind of cool, but it just doesn't fit right now. You may want to reconsider that script.
I think that's brilliant. I think maybe we can get, in fact, let's not tell anyone this, Christina. Let's develop a board game.
Oh, that would be fun.
Yeah. Keep this a secret now. We'll develop a board game.
We just have it blurted out on Magical Medical Tour. That's all.
Patterns of behavior. To get to enlightenment, you have to go and change these patterns and et cetera, et cetera.
For all the closet actors out there, rewrite your script.
Right.
Oh my goodness!
Thank you for that letter in. We appreciate that always.
Mm-hmm.
So we have one more category, Christina.
Oh, we do?
Yeah.
Oh yes, number 6.
Sleep.
Good night.
Sleep management.
Mm.
So I'm going to get around this in a very roundabout way, but it's kind of fantastic. You've heard of lymph nodes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So we have our normal circulatory system with the heart, the arteries, the capillaries, the veins, all the blood vessels. That's the circulatory system. But we have a lymph system. And the lymph system is a system that's created that travels through the body. It's kind of a flowing system of fluid that picks up materials, be it bacteria or metabolic wastes or proteins that are in between cells. So they're not inside the cell, they're not inside the blood vessel. There's a third place that things can be. Something is either in a blood vessel, or it's in a cell, or it's outside the cell in tissue between cells. And sometimes things get out into this tissue, and that's where the lymph is. They have these channels that wash through the body from the feet all the way up, and they go. The lymph fluid is picking up particles and going through these channels, and they go into lymph nodes. And the lymph nodes are kind of a screening device where they say, "Oh, there's a bacteria, let's kill it." They work with the immune system, or there's some metabolic protein waste. Let's keep that. And all of the other good things or okay things then go back into the normal circulatory system, and then they get circulated again. And then the body gets rid of the lymph, the tissue, or the fluid particles that are waste products. Got that?
Mm-hmm,
So periodically lymph nodes get swollen, and that's when you think you have a cold or something like that, or a malignancy. Different things like that. You've heard of that, right?
Yes, I have. And I do believe there's a massage process that is to drain the lymph nodes.
Absolutely. Lymphatic massage is very big now, and there are many issues that people have, especially people that, for example, a woman that might have a mastectomy for a breast cancer, who may also have what they call an axillary node dissection. That means in the axilla or the armpit, where the lymph nodes are that drain from the breast, sometimes cancer can be found there. So the surgeons will, as part of a radical mastectomy rather than a simple procedure, will go up into the arm pit or axilla and remove the lymph nodes. And because of this, a lot of people that have that surgery will start developing swelling in that arm because it's the lymph swelling. It has nowhere to drain anymore as easily. So this is a great thing for the body, but for years, forever actually, we tried to figure out, the lymph system does not go into the brain. The brain and the central nervous system are closed off. They have a barrier between, we call it the blood-brain barrier. And this is a protective mechanism of the body and the brain to protect it from things that might get into the bloodstream. They won't get through this brain barrier into the brain and affect it as easily. And medications are designed for getting into the brain or staying out of the brain. Many many things are. But we could not figure out why the brain did not have a lymph system. It made no sense. But a Dr. Nadergaard in her lab in Rochester, New York, recently published, and this is in March of this year, they finally found that the brain actually has a lymph system. And they found that what it happens is this flow of fluid goes through the brain tissue in the same way that the body lymph goes through the interstitial parts. So it's not in the cells and it's not in the blood vessels. It's almost like a wash comes through the brain and it takes away and picks up all of these proteins and bacteria and cleans them out. This was just discovered this past March, and they did this with radioactive medications that they could follow going through the brain, and they would see it flowing. And this has some really big implications, because one of the things, as you may know, is there's a protein in the brain called amyloid beta that's produced. And amyloid beta is one of the problems that we see in Alzheimer's. This protein starts tangling up the neurons in the brain and different parts of the brain structure so that it doesn't function as well. And we're finding out that it's this lymphatic system of the brain, as at least part of it. It's, again, just like everything else, and we started from the very beginning talking about diet is complex. Certainly the brain is very complex, but it's this cleansing system that washes through the tissue of the brain and clears out these proteins. If it doesn't work as well, then those proteins build up, and that's when you can see degenerative diseases like Alzheimer's or Parkinson's and many other degenerative neurologic disorders. So this is a great discovery. And I know right now, there's no question in my mind, Christina, that you're thinking, yes, but what does this have to do with sleep? Were you thinking that?
Oh no, I was just trying to keep up on all this information. I think that it's so brilliant right now. It's like we have our own street cleaners going through our brain.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. It's this flood of fluid that washes through all the tissue and comes out the other side, and it cleans it up. And we're going to, as they study more of this, I think we may find cures and therapies for many of the diseases that have plagued us throughout history. But here's the part. So I'm going to connect it right now for you. It appears that another reason that it's important to sleep, and a reason for sleep, is that when we are sleeping, in our deeper sleep, it appears that the cells in our brain shrink a little bit. And by shrinking a little bit, it allows for that increased space so that the lymph type of fluids can flow through. In fact, they call it, they have a great name for it. It's the glymphatic system. So they add a G to the lymphatic system, and the G is because of one of the types of cells or tissues in the brain is called a glial cell, G-L-I-A-L. It's a glial cell. So they made it the glymphatic system for the brain. And it appears that at night, or when you're sleeping, the brain shrinks just enough. The cells in the brain shrink enough so that they allow these spaces to open up more, and the fluid flows freely. And I won't say that again.
Why?
and it seems to be clearing the brain. So the reason I'm bringing this up is that it's another reason, an important point in making sure that, as one of the 6 categories, sleep is managed well. And you can say to people when you're going to sleep, or if you're sleeping longer, you're saying, just clearing my brain, just getting clear.
So what about those of us who get foggy brain when we sleep too much. Maybe it's too much cleaning and I've cleaned out a little too much.
You've cleaned out all the good stuff.
Yeah.
I knew that you would find out. So that's it for me today. Inside the Doctor's Bag, the 6 categories. I hope that it helped a little bit. It's very important to keep health issue as a issue itself and not wait for an illness or injury to become a health issue. Keep it on the front burner and look at these 6 categories and find ways for yourself to figure out these categories and take them, again, from intellect to consciousness.
Wonderful.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, I was going to ask you for a tip, but I think all 6 of these are your tips.
That's right.
A tip within each one, right?
The only other health tip I would come up with today is it would be very healthy for everyone to go out and vote for us, because then we will be able to continue doing the show, bringing great people to the show, bringing current information and great information for people to make great decisions and become healthier. So your whole health issue is related to voting.
That sounds great. Well, thank you, Dr. Glenn Woolman. That is a wonderful hour with you. That is so well spent in so many different areas of our wellness and our health issues. Pay attention, everyone. Make it an issue so that you take care of yourselves.
That's right. Goodbye, everyone. I want to thank all of my healers and my teachers for allowing me on my journey. And I want to thank you all for joining us and all the people from Yoga Hub, Christina and Segovia. And I want to say until next week, when we travel through another quadrant of the healthcare galaxy, I'm wishing you all optimal health.
Thank you so much, Dr. Glenn Woolman, and of course to each and every one of you for joining us in this new platform of education and information. We're, of course, continuously grateful for your support and look forward to hearing your feedback on how we can serve you better. We invite you to join us live on Tuesdays for Magical Medical Tour at 10:30 a.m. Pacific, 1:30 p.m. Eastern, Wednesdays for Trinity of Life at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, followed every other week with Flowing into Awareness with Anatara. I'd like to remind you that we will be starting some new shows coming 2014, and we look forward to having you. We invite you to join us on the new shows and the new programs. And as a reminder, please connect with Dr. Glenn Woolman by following him on Twitter at Glenn Woolman, and of course through his own site, glennwoolman.com, where you can learn about his Metaphor Square Breath. Again, we are grateful for any feedback and support, and we would invite you to vote for us for the 9th Annual Podcast Awards. Again, if you just log on to our site, yogahub.tv, right there, you will see all the information on how to vote. And it's a daily voting system. So we would appreciate any of you that could take that extra spare time out each day and just cast your vote. It is your support during all this is critical to the growth of YHTV and the whole network in itself. So we look forward to bringing you more. Again, if you have any comments or questions, give us a call at 818-LETS-TALK. 818-LETS-TALK. Until next time, namaste. YHTV's Magical Medical Tour. Come join Dr. Glenn Woolman and Christina Suzama as they journey through the healthcare galaxy, interviewing doctors, healthcare practitioners in the attempt to share ways to achieve optimal health. Join us on yogahub.tv every Tuesday at 10:30 a.m. Pacific, 1:30 p.m. Eastern.
That it's your family and your doctors and your caretakers and friends and the people around you that see the positive happening and are there to nurture that. It's not, if you have to go it alone, it's going to take you out. We just don't have the individual strength, I don't believe, to handle some of the dark side. You need a you need the whole group to go to the dark side with you and help you come back.